along with the Heavy Press, and who am I here with? Who are you guys? What do you do?
I'm Dave. We're a band called the British Columbians.
I'm Girard. I'm the singer and guitar player. And Dave plays drums.
Dave plays drums. So, I kind of want to start off, is it true that the British Columbians started, this is just a rumor that's going around, that you guys started because one of you decided to hitchhike across Canada? Is this a fable, or?
Well, I think that's probably a stretched story a little bit. I wouldn't say it was started. I mean, I grew up on the prairies, and I left, and I didn't really hitchhike to get to BC, but I pretty much packed everything I could into this tiny little car and stacked up high, and made my way through the mountains, and then just sort of set my roots down in BC, and so much so I loved it there so much we started a band, and I loved it so much I bought the company. I don't know. I loved it so much I thought, let's start a band called the British Columbians.
And then you guys all came in for the ride, eh?
Yeah, and I've never hitchhiked, so that story wasn't about me.
Well, it's interesting then. I wonder where that story came from. That's kind of interesting. So,
that's the first I've actually heard that, actually. I'm surprised. I don't know.
Really? Well, you guys just kind of seem like that kind of band, But
wouldn't you want to stop and pick me up on the side of the highway? I mean, look at me.
Maybe. We'll see about that. So fans heard your song Broken Busted on one of the most popular TV shows out there right now, Sons of Anarchy. So, did you guys obviously receive a lot of attention from that? What's that been like for you guys?
Yeah, it was good. I guess we received some attention from it. Actually, it's kind of funny the way those things often work out. I had gotten in touch when I saw the show. I'd gotten in touch with the music supervisor there and thought our music would work really well. Fans of that show, because the music is so strong and it's very bluesy. I thought, okay, well this would work good. So I got in touch. He said he'd consider it. But a year later, he finally emailed me back and said, hey, considering it for this season. And then a contract ended up happening. We were really surprised. And he told us the scene, and he said, this is the scene it should be in. And we knew it was what's called a background usage, which means it's going to be about as loud, potentially, as the music that you hear in here right now. Maybe a little bit louder if you're lucky. And you hope that someone goes, hey, what's the song in that bar? As it turned out, it was a different scene when we watched the episode. We saw the episode, and when it played, my wife and I were watching it, and she said to me, wouldn't it be hilarious if that song that you can't really hear anything of, it just sounds like a very small whisper in the background, was your song? And sure enough, I put my ear to the speaker, and I'm like, oh shit, that is totally our song. And the scene it was supposed to be in got switched out. Having said that, we got contacted by a booking agency after they were looking through the website, the Sons of Anarchy website, looking for music, and somehow that connection ended up happening. Did he actually hear it on the show and go, wow, this is the best? No. But there's been some good stuff. We've had lots of views of the video, I think, more since, when people start searching music from Sons of Anarchy on YouTube or something. There's been a lot of stuff that's come that way.
Yeah, that's what I noticed, it was like all over YouTube, so that was pretty good. So also, Broken Busted, awesome song, and it really sounds like you guys have a lot of different influences, like especially in the drums, you can kind of hear some soca in it. So how did that happen? What were your influences for that, and how did that song happen?
So, well, I mean, I think that was a really good example, that song, of when Girard and I first started playing, seeing how, the blues influence of a lot of the stuff that Girard listened to, and I was playing in a world music and African band for about 4 years before we started doing stuff. And that was one of the first songs that, when he just started playing it, the drum beat that came out totally made sense. And I think it was the first time that we really, really touched on sort of trying to blend those two, naturally blend those two, not to force them together, which, I mean, African music is the root of blues music, which is the root of rock and roll. But it seemed to naturally kind of sort of go together. But for sure, like my brain picks up lots of those African drum beats now and tries to see where I can put them into stuff sometimes. And I think it just kind of happened with that one.
It's a really fun song. So in 2009, you guys were voted CBC's Best Undiscovered Band by a huge panel of, I guess, people that worked for some well-known record companies. But what's changed since then?
Well, I mean, I guess, we put out a record, and we got, again, from the sort of Canadian music industry, we got a little bit of recognition from them as well. We were nominated for a Western Canadian Music Award for it, and that was really cool. That was nice to be sort of, name checked, I suppose, that way, and it was a good honor. But really, now we're sort of at a point where we're trying to look at just not worrying so much about, outside recognition, although it's appreciated. We're very much focused on just trying to create more music ourselves, and sort of, we've spent the last year and a bit working on putting together our own studio, and so that we can actually make more music and have more time to do that.
I'm sorry. I think one of the big things, especially, we put out our first record in 2008, 2009. Things like this started happening where you get named this, this, or like there's these different little things that come, and they're all really great. But I think what we discovered going through the process over the past 3-4 years is that those things mostly are really good to get someone to take your phone call, or to read an email, or to consider you for booking a show, or to maybe consider they're going to play you on a satellite radio station or whatever it is. And I think all of those things have really helped to sort of have people at least listen. The music industry itself as a commercial thing for a band like us is I think that's why we decided to really focus on getting our own studio, putting out our records ourselves, because we can, and we don't want to be chasing. We spent the first couple of years trying to chase, well, can we get a label deal? Can we get a distribution deal? Can we get this? Can we get that? And you spend a lot of time doing that, and it's fine, but really what's the most important thing is for us to make music, and if we can get it out to people and it can be spread ourselves, it's just a lot of effort, and I think we just kind of, about 5 years into it now, we're like, okay, let's just do our shit the way we're going to do it, and if somebody ever comes along and wants to offer us something, we'll have a conversation, but we're certainly not holding our breath for it at this point at all.
That makes sense. So with that being said, you guys have all these other things on the go. How is it juggling like your family life with your career in music?
Well, I think anybody that, tries to have follow an endeavor like this, trying to create music, will tell you that it's a very difficult thing, and it is. We're very lucky that, I know certainly for Dave and I, we have families that are understanding and patient and supportive of what we do, and but it's still, there's only so many hours in a day, and you have to. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to make sure that you're aware of what is important to you and what is the priority. And both of us have young families now, and that's certainly made it a little bit harder to do things quickly and on the fly than we could have in the past. But we've managed to find a way to structure our lives around being able to have opportunities like this to play music, like to come to Toronto and play music for people, or structure our lives around getting together in our studio and creating music. But there is a sacrifice, that's just the reality. But I think partly for me, I want to show that my children that, life is about making sacrifices, and sometimes you sacrifice, certain things for things that you believe in. And, I believe in the music that we make, and, if I didn't, I guess I would say it's very easy not to do it. It's very easy to find a reason not to play music, There's all kinds of distractions out there. And so at the end of the day, you really have to come around to the idea for yourself, why are you doing this? What is your motivation? And, ideally, the motivation for me, and I don't want to speak for Dave, but I know it's a part of what we've talked about, is trying to always create something of value, something that has a worth to it in music. And I think that while we don't have maybe millions of fans or anything like that, the people that do like our music, you know, I think we give them something substantial, and we want to continue to do that, you know.
So with that being said, like with your fan base and everything, you guys have played a lot of pretty big festivals, like you did Scene Fest. Now you're down here for North by Northeast. So how do you guys prepare yourself for these bigger shows?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know that we put a ton of thought into trying to create, you know, I guess I would put it this way. I don't think that we prepare for a big show necessarily any differently than we would for a little show. Like, we've been playing music for a long time, and, you know, it's more about trying to find the sometimes it's hard, right? You're up for 20 hours and you're exhausted and your throat's sore and you don't really feel like getting up there and doing it, but, you know, you've spent 10 hours driving in a van or whatever, but you have to have, you know, like these, I don't know if it's a gut check moment or what, but you have to just put it in perspective. Like, it's this time where you're going to be on this stage and try to give something to the people that are there, that is the most important thing. And so you just sort of rise to the occasion, whatever it is, whether it's 5 people in a bar or whether it's, you know, a couple thousand people at a festival or whatever it is. So I don't really approach it any differently, I suppose, really.
Well, on this tour that you guys have been doing, from the show that I've seen, you guys have been playing some new music. So, with that being said, what can we expect? Is there a new album in the works? What's going on?
So we've got a bunch of new songs we're working on right now. Yeah, we're basically been writing a bunch. We probably have, I don't know, 8 songs, maybe more. Actually, we probably have about an album's worth of music written. Now we're basically fleshing it all out actually in the studio and starting to arrange things properly so that we can play it live. And the plan really right now is when we're back, actually, we're gonna be jumping into recording, and really starting to release some music, probably a couple songs at a time, doing like a 7-inch single with a B-side or an EP scenario, leading up to an album being a collection after all of these songs have been released. The process of writing a full album, you know, recording the full album, putting the album out, promoting that album, and whatever singles you're going to try to promote is a really, really long and expensive one if you do it in that sort of order. And you only have so much window. Like, you've got a few months, you got 2 to 4 months, maybe 6 months, that you can actually keep trying to follow up that music and say, well, we've already put out 3 songs from that record. You know, what are we going to do now? And the hill starts to come back down again. And so rather than really go up that big steep hill, which is super time consuming, super expensive, and all of that, our plan now is to basically try to just keep things consistently coming out, pushing out, keep playing shows, keep touring around, put the songs together in a collection, an album at the end of it rather than at the beginning. Because, you know, in the way we write, because it's such a long process, you know, we would put out an album every year and a half or something like that, which is too long. We want to be putting out more music sooner than that. So that's where we're at sort of right now. And it's a different approach for us, but we have our own studio and space now. And so it's actually really interesting starting to actually head down that road sort of ourselves. Yeah.
So that's exciting. We can't wait. So if your fans want to check out your stuff right now, if they want to buy the albums that you guys already have and maybe watch out for your upcoming album, where should they check you guys out?
Sure. So thebritishcolumbians.com, facebook.com/thebritishcolumbians. On Twitter, we're the BCs, THEBCS. And I think those are the main places. Anywhere else, it's all connected through that anyways.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait. Thank you, guys. And we will look forward to what's next for you guys. Thank you.